several months in the early days, I did feel like I was almost watching myself walk through the motions. Like my body was going through what it needed to, but there was something like I felt like I was like looking in because I was incapable of really comprehending for a bit of time, like what had actually happened.
The Go Hunt Life Show, hosted by Todd Nevins.
This is Todd Nevins, and I interview people that had seemingly normal lives and careers going, but they pulled the ripcord to epically reinvent themselves in order to pursue a life full of purpose and passion. Welcome to episode number 70 on the Go Hunt Life podcast. And on today's show, I have the incredible privilege to speak with Chief Inspiration Officer and co-founder at Live Your Legend, Chelsea Dinsmore. Her mission and her company's vision is this: inspire people to change the world by doing work that they love. A lot of overlap between their mission and the reason you are listening to Go Hunt Life right now. The Live Your Legend movement started over 10 years ago, and today is a global community with groups in over 75 countries, and Chelsea is the unstoppable force behind it. But her story has some brutal lows. She's completely transparent about all of them. Her ripcord moment happened about 2 years ago near the summit of Mt Kilimanjaro in a rockslide, where she instantly had to comprehend her new reality. My conversation with Chelsea Dinsmore starts right after a quick word from our rockin' sponsor, PrintDirtCheap.com. This episode is sponsored by PrintDirtCheap.com. Jeff Chrisman, the founder of Print Dirt Cheap, and the crew there are rock stars when it comes to delivering top quality printing at a cheap price. If you've met me in the last 3 years and I handed you a business card, it was printed by Print Dirt Cheap. They're my online digital printing company for everything. They do banners, company letterhead, a ton of direct mail pieces, funky decals, even menus for restaurants, over 30 categories of printing products, and yes, business cards. And they do it fast and they do it cheap. Jeff has streamlined every little aspect of the business to provide the perfect user experience, delivering the best product in the industry. I have personally been to the offices and I have seen it firsthand. But see for yourself. Go to printdirtcheap.com, use promo code GoHuntLife, and get $10 off of your order. Or if you want to get a sample of their work, click on Sample Pack and they'll mail you one out for free. Go to printdirtcheap.com, use promo code GoHuntLife for $10 off of your next print job. Chelsea, thank you for jumping on the show today. I already know it's going to be awesome.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so honored to be here.
Where are you at right now? And if you were to walk outside, what are you going to see? What city are you in?
I'm probably asked that question more than any other. I actually am in San Francisco right now. So I am got a little place here right near the Palace of Fine Arts, which is one of my very favorite monuments. So if I was to walk outside, I would be looking at the Palace of Fine Arts.
Nice. What is your profession and primary ways that you earn a living?
Oh my God, my profession. That's actually a tough question. So I am a recovering many things. No, just kidding. I am actually today the Chief Inspiration Officer of a business called Live Your Legend. We help people to find and do work that they love. But I also just spent the last 3 months working in an Italian kitchen at a yoga retreat over the summer. And after this interview, I will be going to teach fitness classes for a modality called the Daily Method. That's why I said I've got a little bit of an interesting CV.
Yeah, a few income streams. What is, So you mentioned it briefly. What is Live Your Legend's motto, mission?
So our mission statement is actually to change the world by doing work that you love. But what we mean by that is that what Live Your Legend does is it provides tools, support, and a community to help people discover their strengths, skills, and talents and apply that to either their current career or the career that they would like to go into. Because we really believe that when we live our days from a place of leveraging our strengths and living out, the things that make us feel alive, that we really have that kind of immeasurable ripple effect. Like when you meet somebody and you're just like, man, that person's energy is amazing. It's most likely not the person who wants to bang their head against the desk every single day. And it doesn't matter. Some of the freaking happiest people I've met have been any career you can imagine, from garbage men to CEOs. So it's really just about living your days intentionally, because we believe that the energy and the ripple effect that makes on the world around you is kind of unstoppable. So that's what our mission is at Live Your Legend.
All right. Yeah. And we have a lot of overlap between the people that listen to the Go Hunt Life and the Go Hunt Life community. And I've also interviewed Mike Lewis with When to Jump. And I know he's got kind of the same mentality, man, your energy and emotion. And if you're doing something you love every single day, it shows. And it is obvious. How was Live Your Legend started and how long ago?
So Live Your Legend has unofficially been around for probably about 10 years, and branded as Live Your Legend for closer to 5. So it was started by my late husband, Scott, who actually began it just as a blog where he was reviewing personal development books. So he knew nothing about the internet, and he read this book that was like, you don't need to code to know how to have a website. It's like right when WordPress was starting and things like that. And he's like he was one of those crazy people where he was like, oh my God, I can build a website and I don't need to know how to code. So I'm going to just build a website. So he did. He didn't even know it was a blog at the time, because this was way before blogging was what it is today. And that was how it started. And it began to gain a following because he started, he went on this career path and, kind of began helping people find career paths that they loved. And so eventually in around 2010, I believe it was, is when it got rebranded to, 2011, I think, got rebranded to Live Your Legend from Reading for Your Success. And so, so it was kind of unofficially around at that point, but it didn't make its first dollar as a business probably until about 2012.
He started it in 2005 and all the way through 2012. How did he pay the bills, and when did you merge into being a part of the company and you guys together and all that?
Yeah, so we met way back in university. So we met in 2002. So we were already together, but I actually, to be quite honest, I was the breadwinner for a while. We had gotten engaged in 2009, dated for 8 years, got engaged in 2009. And he had a separate company, and Live Your Legend was a side passion project. But then as it started to gain a following, so, he had that business that was making money and I had my own career. But then when Live Your Legend was kind of growing, he gave up that business. And that's where I was kind of the sole income for us for a period of time. He took out some business loans and things like that. And so that was that. And then I was never officially a part of the business. Scott called me his chief balance officer because I just helped keep him sane. I was his editor for a really brief period of time, but he had way too tight of deadlines. And I was like, I got another job. I can't do this. So I quit. That was my only real existence as a member of Live Your Legend until I then took over the business after he passed away.
When he was going to seeking funding, loans, how do you walk into a bank and ask for money for something like this?
He did more of the micro investing. So he didn't go into a big bank. He did more of a personal loan type thing, from people that he paid back via interest and things like that. So he went the route of the venture type stuff, because it actually really wasn't a big business loan. The business loan was actually to start the other business, which he needed. And then Live Your Legend was started by starting a website. And that was it, which is very, very, very low overhead. So he didn't need the loan for that business. He had the loan for the other business, actually, that he started. And that was... What was
the other business?
It was... So he was really big fan of Warren Buffett and the kind of investment style that Warren Buffett has. So it was basically a money management firm. But that was the thing, is he was dually doing both of these things. And, I'm not to say that any one career path is better than another, but he personally, he felt that, making rich people richer for him wasn't as fulfilling as what he was doing at Live Your Legend. And so that was when he then closed that and began to go full time at Live Your Legend.
A couple of couple of things coming out. Were you guys always like major league travelers?
So interestingly enough, Scott grew up traveling. I didn't. My very first international trip that I ever, I had to get a passport for it, whatever, was when I was 20 years old and went to study abroad in Spain. I have no idea what made me decide to do that, but that was my first international trip. But after that, yeah, like he traveled after university. I separately traveled after university. And then we started taking trips like once a year together. So travel was always something that we both enjoyed and loved. But no, I mean, he had a lot, like I don't come from a family who traveled a lot. Like I didn't travel until I was in my 20s.
And then in 2000, leading up to the life-changing situation that we're getting to, you two were on a 1-year around the world trip in 2014, 2015. Walk me through that trip and obviously what happened.
Yeah. So we were married in 2010 and we had both lived abroad. As I mentioned, we had both studied abroad, but we had never lived abroad together. And because we loved to travel so much and we loved European culture, on our honeymoon, we said to each other that we would love to live in Italy for a year. So this was 2010. And we we began to make little small steps towards that, just very small throughout our marriage. The smallest things of like, we didn't buy that $5,000 couch. Instead, we got a couch on Craigslist because it was like, we want to do this trip. And so we just made all these tiny micro decisions. And within those 5 years, Live Your Legend began to become what it was. I created a situation in the company that I was working for where I could work remotely. And so, we decided that 2015 was our year. And instead of taking the Italy 1 full year thing, now that Live Your Legend had communities, so we have communities that meet up all around the world in person in like 75 countries. And so we decided to kind of turn our trip into more than just about us. And so that ended up turning it into a more year around the world trip. We started down in Argentina, spent a few months down there, down in South America, and then went over to Europe, spent about 5 months in Europe. And then in September of 2015, so 8 months into our trip, we were climbing Kilimanjaro. And on our summit day, so it was day 6 of an 8-day trek, there was an unfortunate rock slide. And Scott did not make it. And so, it was a pretty precarious situation sitting on the top of a mountain in the middle of Africa, trying to comprehend that this was my new reality. So it was obviously a very life-altering moment in my life because I returned back to where we had called home, San Francisco, but we had sold every single thing that we owned. So I came back to no home, no belongings, no job, no husband. So you can say it was a little bit of a challenge. I got handed a little bit of a card.
You did, and you're young. From that moment, what happened within like the first 24 hours? You're on the mountain. You recovered his body. He wasn't off, like he was there with you.
Yeah. So basically there were, the rocks began to fall. I remember looking up and just diving to get out of the way of the rocks. And then as soon as they had passed, because it wasn't like full avalanche style. Like it was just, there were a few boulders that fell, but they were moving really fast. We were at a very steep portion of the mountain. And so then, I look over to check on Scott and I ran right to his side, and that was when I realized that something was severely wrong. I attempted to resuscitate him, and so we were 17,000 feet up at this moment, and figuring out what to do because the portion of the mountain that we had been on, no one had ever descended because it's so steep and slippery. And so there was this conversation like, do we climb up to the summit and then come down? And I'm not in any of these conversations. All the guides and the first responders were all dealing with this. But basically, I walked down a mountain that I had climbed for 6 days. And then I had to take care of a bunch of crazy business. I went straight to the hospital and the police station and the mortuary 15 hours later, I got to a hotel where I could finally call family and friends and tell them what was going on because I was in remote Tanzania, and book myself on a flight home back to America, which was the next day and was a 36-hour journey. So it was, I mean, when I tell this story, like I remember it obviously because I lived it, but it's like, I mean, it's so far out what we're capable of doing because people hear this story and they're like, I could never. And if I would have heard this story, I would have said the same exact thing.
Yeah. Do you think you're describing something like a story of a good friend of yours versus your story when you're telling this to me?
Yes and no, because, you know, I mean, I've done a lot of work in the last 2 years, of just, you know, understanding our thoughts and mindfulness and getting, you know, at such a deeper level into our souls and all of that stuff. So, I mean, I do and I don't, because I know, like I was there, like I can feel and I can see everything, where I think that a lot of people, when you hear a story of another friend, you kind of create a vision in your head, but it's not always attached to actual visceral feelings. And so I know that it's mine, but yeah, like I almost actually get more of that when I hear people's reactions, like, because now I've lived it. And to me, it's like, yeah, like this is my story. But sometimes people are like, holy, you know, holy shit. Right. Yeah, and like people's reactions sometimes are sort of where I'm like, oh yeah, this is a really crazy story, isn't it? Like
pretty heavy.
Yeah, but I will say, in all honesty, I think for the first, for several months in the early days, I did feel like I was almost watching myself walk through the motions. Like my body was going through what it needed to, but there was something like, I felt like I was like looking in because I was incapable of really comprehending for a bit of time, like what had actually happened. You know, the body's amazing in its resilience. It knows how to shut off our mind in a powerful way. And there is something so much greater and so much deeper about us that exists within all of us when we shut that mind off. So it's really amazing, actually, how resilient we are.
Support for this podcast and the following message comes from Click Placement, a digital agency designing Google AdWords and pay-per-click marketing strategies for startups, small businesses, and even people building a side hustle. Hit up clickplacement.com to start a conversation. If you would like to personally support the Go Hunt Life podcast, go to patreon.com/Go Hunt Life to make a donation.
Was there a tipping point on you coming back into your body? And you know, not looking at your life from a third party point of view? Was there a tipping point, or was it just simply time and acceptance?
Yeah, no. And I just submitted my book proposal. So I'm like, this is on point right now because I've literally like been going through all of this for the past 5 months of writing this proposal. But I remember a very, very vivid tipping point, and it's called The Low Point in my book. The chapter is, and I grew up in my childhood pretty close to suicide and depression, like within my immediate family. I basically only have a member of my family today because I called them in the middle of them committing suicide. And I was very close to depression. I just remember, like, I almost use that as a jumping off point of, I was like, I want to love my life. Like, and I don't want it to be about my surroundings. Like, I'm going to, like, you know, and so I always use it as a leverage point. And so I remember being right after Scott's memorial service, which we held about 6 weeks or 5 or 6 weeks after his passing. I just needed to get out. Like, I was suffocated in San Francisco because I just landed and it was just such overwhelm, right? So I took a little retreat by myself up to wine country. And I recall I was sitting in the bathtub, and most mornings I woke up and like I would think things like, oh man, I wonder if the big quake's going to happen in San Francisco. Wouldn't be such a bad thing. Like, it was kind of like that mentality of like, you know, I can't say I wanted to be on the planet, but I wanted the universe to handle it. Like, I would literally, like, I would look at cars and be like, oh, do you think that they might hit me? Like, you know what I mean? Or like,
Oh my
tree,
gosh.
tree, fall on me. Like, I wasn't going to do anything about it myself, but I didn't want to be here. And I remember having that. There was just a moment where I was sitting in the bathtub in Napa, and I was just like, this is not life. I can't wake up every day waiting for my life to be over because life is going to pass me by. And if anyone knows how short it can be, it's me. Scott was 33 years old, and in a matter of seconds, he was gone. And so I had that, and like the commitment I made to myself that day, in that moment, I said, I have no idea how to figure this out, but I will figure out a way to figure it out. That was a turning point for me, for sure.
Did that coincide with you taking the reins over with Live Your Legend and taking it to where you've taken the last 2 years?
I think probably not at a very conscious level, but yes. Like what I needed to do was I needed to replace some of my pain with purpose. I needed to find something where I found real purpose in my days, because in that place of just being so broken, pain was where I was getting my, people were responding to it, and people were, whatever. And so I needed to replace that pain with something more resourceful. And so I unofficially took over Live Your Legend, but I committed to some other things that were very growth oriented that were just within. And I think in a way that trickled down into me taking over Live Your Legend. That was in October of 2015. And I didn't officially take over Live Your Legend until about December of 2015. But yeah, I think they all, one decision leads to another. So I definitely think that me basically committing to finding real massive purpose that I aligned with led in a way to me taking over Live Your Legend.
Were you fearful of being now the face of something that Scott had built from a simple little website into a community across 75 countries? Were you afraid of letting him down, letting yourself down, like anything like that?
Well, I have to admit, I think that the motive behind our decisions matters so much, because I actually didn't take over Live Your Legend, really, to be honest. Like, I did it out of love for Scott, but it wasn't a way for me to honor him. I thought there were other ways I could honor him. It also had nothing to do with me. So what really happened was the community responded just so beautifully and so amazing, and so much support, and everyone was worried about me. And so I think about a few weeks after Scott's passing, I had received just hundreds and hundreds of emails and letters and all of this stuff, and people were concerned. And so I just simply wrote a letter. It was a letter, but it was a blog post to the community. And I said, I just want to let you guys know, like, this was the state that Scott was in. He was really happy and, joyful and present, and this is where I am. And then in response to that, I got all of these letters back of just like, oh my God, Chelsea, like what you said really helped me. I'm grieving the loss of my mom right now, or I'm grieving the loss of my child. And like what you said about, like focusing on what you have, not what you don't. Like, I can't believe how much it helped me. And so then that caused me to write another post. And then I realized that helped. And then it caused me to write another. So my motive wasn't looking at, me being the face of it, or me being, keeping revenue up or numbers up, or it was nothing to do with any of that. It really began and evolved from a place of my heart, of just like, I don't know what I'm doing, but me sharing somehow seems to be helping some people. So I guess I'll write another thing. Like, that's really how it went. And then at some point I had to put on my strategic mind, of course. And that's where I started to make those more strategic decisions a couple of months later. But yeah, I can't at all say that it wasn't daunting. As much as Scott never wanted Live Your Legend to be a personality brand, it was. And I sort of signed up in a way to be very public with a process that feels at times very scary and isolating, and like there's no rule book. And I kind of signed up to do that in a public way. But at the same time, I made that decision. So, it was my decision to make and I chose it. And so I was cool with it.
What mentors have helped you along the way that have maybe been in a similar situation that you're in, or they're running a huge company or something like that? Have you relied on other mentors that maybe outside of the Live Your Legend community that have helped you along the way?
Yeah. So actually I remember, interestingly enough, like I said, the human spirit has an amazing resilience. And I remember still being in Africa and like a voice inside of me, like kind of saying like, you're going to be able to figure this out. But then being like, but what the hell am I going to do with Live Your Legend? Because I do not know how to run a business. And it was so beautiful. By the time I landed home, I mean, I had so many people that were friends of Scott's or within the industry or whatever, just saying, Chelsea, we're here to help. Like, whatever you need, we're here to help. So I actually leaned a lot on a lot of people. Scott was involved in masterminds and things. And, I just met with all those people. I also got a female mentor that I really love, Jada Selner. She was a founder of Simple Green Smoothies and now runs jadaselner.com and does all these amazing mentorship labs. And so, yeah, like I said, I did not know how to do anything that I was doing. My personal life, the business life, I got a business coach. I got help because I needed it. We all need help. And especially when you're in a place of, really everything is new. So yeah, there were so many people, James Clear, Leo Babelta, Corbett Barr, like all of these people were just massive. Like they just were there to help, not, in order to give me some strategy, but also like, just out of a place of love of Scott and of me. And it was really beautiful in the beginning how many people stepped in.
So the business today, the motto you said, change the world by doing the work you love. And you provide experiments, tools, and guides help people find their passion and building a career around it. So you guys sell a lot of different courses, life hacks, I almost said, but it's way more detailed than that. So what's the business model today? Like, where's the revenue come from and how does it look like from a business perspective?
Yeah, so we really haven't updated the business model. Like, I ended up bringing on partners to the business back in December. So about 9 months ago. And that was partly because as much as, I love Live Your Legend and it's a mission of love for me and it always will be. There's some other things that I love too that are very Chelsea, and I needed to create the space to be able to do both, to really be in alignment with myself. So we really, as a team of 3 partners, we really haven't changed the business model much. Like always, I would say about 60 to 70% of our revenue comes from our own courses that we sell. And we have 4 courses that range from, between $100 to $500, and we sell those. And then outside of that, we do very, very few affiliate partnerships. We are big believers in people starting blogs. So we have an affiliate program with Bluehost. And then Fizzle is a great place to how to build an online business. And we love them because they're all about building honest online businesses, not these ones that are trying to sell cheap money, get rich quick scams. Yep. So, but I mean, it's not one of those like crazy, businesses that needs to make all these millions of dollars, because I live a very simple life and Scott and I lived a pretty simple life. And, we were never about just adding another zero to the end of things. We were more about the lifestyle that we could create. And so it's been run that way when Scott and I started it. And, we've had years where we've done better than others, but, it's a pretty modest business, but we're happy with it and we love it.
How much does it stem from someone beginning to a life reinvention to starting a blog, to start writing it and publishing it versus something else that a person wants to do?
Well, we just think that so much of our barriers, our roadblocks, our limitations are all in our head, right? And sometimes it takes experiences that create a little confidence that help us realize that we actually can add value. Because that's where we believe the big place to start is if you're going to add value to someone's life, eventually they're going to want to pay you for it. Or if you add value to one person's life, you can probably add value to 2 or 4 or 10 or 4 million. Like, so we start from a place of adding value. And one of the times, the easiest and most inexpensive ways to do that is to recognize that you do actually have a way to help people. Even sometimes by simply sharing your words, your thought process, your expertise, the way that, if you're super into like tuning guitars or something weird like that and you do it a little differently, that's going to resonate with someone. So that's why we're believers in starting blogs, because oftentimes you don't even recognize how you can help until you put stuff out there. And no one's going to get help if you don't actually put it, if it only lives in your brain. So that's why we believe in that. And also too, like, it also really helps you clarify your thoughts. Like, it is so easy to just get caught up in the monkey mind of why we can't do everything. And sometimes all it takes is putting stuff out on paper and you're like, oh my God, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Like, I can't believe I thought I believed that, So it's a way to make sense of the thing that's going on in your mind. And it's also a simple way to add value.
James Altucher posted up something. He's actually updated it once or twice over the last couple of years, that he claims that it takes a person 5 years to truly reinvent themselves. That seems like a long time. And for someone that's like, they've been a teacher or an attorney or an accountant for 15 years, to tell someone that it's going to take them 5 more if they start today to like completely reinvent themselves seems daunting. And there would be a lot of people to be like, oh my gosh, why does it have to take so long? In your mind, like, how long does it take someone to truly like get out of the rut, get out of the career, get out of the life that they were living and live the life of legend?
I mean, one, I do not like constructs of time. I had everybody tell me that the first year was going to be X. The first this was going to be X. And I think when we put those boundaries around things, that becomes our reality. And I'm all about breaking boundaries. I'm all about breaking limitations and proving to ourselves that we can do anything on our own time. Time is like, of course, it does serve a purpose, but it's also an illusion. It's a construct that we put to make sense of things because we creatures want to try to believe that we have any right to make sense of things, right? It makes us feel better. And so I don't agree with anybody putting constructs of time necessarily around. I mean, obviously there's medical science and laws of physics and stuff like that. I'm not going to try to break those barriers, but for the most part, like, I like to look at things a little deeper. And I think the moment that we can let go of limiting beliefs and also detach from identity to something, you could change overnight. But obviously, if we're talking about true logistical things, yes, there are small steps. It's smart to take small steps. We do not encourage people to quit their job today and go find something else because they're likely going to make a poor decision about what they go into, only to end up where they were and then use that as a data point of how they failed. So we don't actually agree with that. We believe in taking small steps. And for some people, they can rebuild or, I don't actually like the word reinvent. I almost kind of like rediscover or something like that. It's different for everybody. I think that we're all starting from different places. We all have different experiences. We all have different resources. So I would never put a construct of time around how long it's going to take. I think the only expectation that I would give people is it's not going to be fucking roses. No. Like, it takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of self-doubt. It takes a lot of, just kind of battling your own inner demons, which is why I think all of it, business, relationships, whatever you want to call it, it's all a freaking spiritual journey, And so that's where it's like, don't say, oh, I'm going to go like live my legend and expect every day to be super easy. We all navigate challenges. It's just whether you can do that with a sense of humor or not, So I don't have an answer to that question of how long it takes because I think it's different for everybody.
I think you just answered it though perfectly. I think you did. All right. Another thing that you said is that you live a pretty, I don't know what the word, simplistic, or you don't have a lot of overhead, and you live a pretty much a location independent lifestyle. And you just said that, and I saw you and Travis Sherry on a webinar like 3 months ago, tearing it up. And you were heading out to Italy to live on $200 for 2 months.
Yeah.
Did you do it? How did it go? $200, 2 months. How?
It was amazing. So, that whole webinar, so I pair up with this guy called Travis Sherry. Extra Pack of Peanuts is his business. And every year we run this thing together. That's one of our affiliates that we do, one of our 3 affiliates. And it's called the Paradise Pack. And it's because I believe in it. Because about 10 years ago, I started travel hacking, is like the industry term, which basically means learning how to travel for cheap. And I actually am ruining my stats. For 7 years, I did not buy an international flight on anything other than miles. And I just bought one to London because I'm doing it last minute and it made sense to go on cash, but that's okay.
So
my reputation is ruined.
All credit card hacking, miles through credit cards.
Travel hacking. You can get them through credit cards. You can get them through different spending technologies. You can get them through, you can acquire miles in many different ways. And I am not the expert there, which is why I agree with the Paradise Pack, because, he has some guy that comes in that's a frequent flyer expert. And that's how I learned everything that I learned. So yeah, basically I flew there on a miles flight, and my taxes there were $150. And so I cushioned in a little bit of maybe spending each week, even though. So I went and I was working at a yoga retreat where it was a work trade program. So I lived there for 2 months, got all my food in exchange for working every day, or I had 2 days off. And so I didn't spend anything. If I would go into town to get a coffee, which occasionally I would, or, on Wednesday nights we had, the guests would go out. And so the staff would go and get, aperitivo and wine, but we also got tipped out. So basically we would spend what we made in tips, and I did that for 2 months, and that was it. My accommodations were paid for, my food was paid for, and then I spent what I had in tips, and that was it.
Going back to the business, how did you run the business? Did you have internet? What tools do you use to run the business from wherever you are?
Yeah, well, and that's, as I mentioned, in the beginning of this year, I brought on some partners to help me with the day-to-day, which, I have to admit, now that I'm back in the Bay Area, my income got cut in the third. And so I am in a place right now where, I made that decision. I didn't lead from the place of revenue. I led from the place of what do I love the most in my life? And that's where, I'm going to have to supplement now a little bit. And that's okay. Because I didn't want to be behind Live Your Legend for a paycheck, because I would never genuinely be able to talk about the message if that's what I was doing, because that's not what we're about. I'm able to now run Live Your Legend, more part-time, and then I get to do other things that I love that also bring in some supplemental income. So I worked 6-hour shifts pretty much. So I had, a couple hours a day where I could go, and oftentimes I would cycle into town and maybe get a coffee and check my emails and do some writing and, do the things that I needed to do. But I have partners that help me now with the day-to-day.
How frequently are you going to be in the United States? Let's say in the next, whatever. How frequently are you in the U.S. versus traveling all over?
Well, the past 3 years, I would say that I've probably, at least 15 months of the last 3 years, I was gone for sure.
Okay.
And then there was about a year period where I was kind of gone for a month in San Francisco for a month. That was the first year, right after Scott passed. I would kind of be back, go away, be back, go away. But as I mentioned, I came home, I didn't have an apartment. I didn't have, I would just be doing Airbnb stuff or staying with family and things like that. And now, actually, my journey over the last 3 years, and funny enough, and I actually think it's really quite beautiful, is I think, I kind of went on this circle, but really it brought me right back home. I think in my heart, and also back to San Francisco. So I actually just next week am going to look at an apartment here in San Francisco because I'm ready to kind of put some roots down. I have the option for the location independence, but where I am right now is wanting some grounding. And I'm going to do it in a way that provide some space. So I'm going to get a more short-term lease and a furnished place, because it does feel daunting to buy tons of furniture right now and all of that stuff. I would look at empty apartments on Craigslist and I'd just be like, oh my God, So I'm going to do it in a way that feels like a smaller step. Like I was saying to these, to the people that are wanting to make a change, but it seems so daunting. Like I began looking the way that I knew how. Brand new apartment, 12-month lease, buying the furniture, all that stuff. And I just said to myself, there's got to be another way.
Do you own a car?
No, I don't own anything. I don't own a fork, Todd.
Oh my God. That might be the title of this podcast. I don't own a fork.
No, so I don't have a car. I basically have some clothes. And I got some shoes. That's good. I definitely have bathing suits.
Like 2 suitcases worth.
I have about 2 suitcases worth of clothing items. And then I did store, I'm a big cook. And so I know that I have some kitchen appliances that I kept and just some kitchen-y things, but not forks. I know I got rid of those. So yeah, I really have very, very, very little to my name, and I can't even tell you how it's freeing. It's very freeing.
Wonderful.
So
wonderful. All right. What are you focused on in the next 6 months? What's the big thing?
So I actually just submitted my book proposal to a couple of literary agents that I have calls with next week. And so we're going to see how that goes. Like I've learned to enjoy the world of uncertainty. Like, yes, it's daunting at times, but I actually wrote somebody an email today and they were like, I'm so scared. And I think one of the things that I've really realized over the past 2 years is that such a beautiful part of this human experience is the range of emotions that we're able to feel. And that means that we're alive. Like, is it great when we feel elated? Sure. But to feel scared, you're feeling, right? Like so many people walk through their days just so numb to everything because they're not feeling, and then you don't feel alive. Like, so a lot of what my next 6 months hinges on is this book proposal. I have no idea right now, but if I were to get picked up by a publisher, that would be a pretty full-time deal for me for the next 6 to 12 months. And if not, then, or in the interim, like I'm going to be figuring out getting back into the world that I loved in San Francisco. I mentioned that I'm teaching some classes again already with my old colleagues that, I know and love in that community. And I would love to get involved in kind of the culinary world that I was in Italy. And so, yeah, my answer is either a book or a bunch of other stuff.
Does your book have a title? Can you share it?
I think it does. I think the title is going to be Limitless, but we shall see. We'll see. It's in the very early stages right now, but yeah, it's been something that I don't know if anyone that's listening has read Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magic, but it's definitely like my big magic, that just like creative thing inside of you that, I haven't done it for anyone or anything other than I felt that there was something inside of me that needed to get out of me. And so it may remain a Google Doc on my computer. It may become something bigger than that. So we shall see.
If you could go back in time right now, 2 years and 1 month ago, and you could walk down that mountain with yourself for 1 minute on the way down and give yourself 1 minute of advice, what would you tell yourself?
I think I would... God, I get even chills even thinking about that. No one's ever asked me that question. It's really beautiful. I think that, one of my mottos that I always say is on the other side of brave is a beautiful you could never imagine. Because I had to make a choice to show up or not. And that required me to do a lot of things that scared me a lot. And I am just, my life today, on that day, I couldn't see the light. I could not see how it would ever be light, but I just kept showing up. And, my life is very different today than I thought it was going to look. And I miss Scott and I long for the life that we would have created together at times. But there is still so much beauty in my life today. And it's a different beauty, and there's beauty in difference. And so I think I would have, no one ever could have probably convinced me of that in that day, on that moment. But I think that advice to just show up, to continue to be brave, and to appreciate all that is, because as I mentioned in the beginning, like even in the pain, there's beauty. And if you open your eyes, and if you show up and you open your eyes, you'll be able to see it. But if you don't open your eyes, you're never going to see it. And so, yeah, probably that.
We're going to end there. That is beautiful. That is perfect. You can find Chelsea at liveyourlegend.net, on Twitter at _liveyourlegend, Facebook liveyourlegend, and Instagram live_your_legend. Chelsea, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. The pleasure is truly all mine. So thank you.
Don't forget to hit up the rock stars at printdirtcheap.com. Use promo code GoHuntLife for $10 off of your next print job. For fast, cheap, and high-quality online printing, it's printdirtcheap.com. Hey, Life Hunters, thank you for listening to this episode of Go Hunt Life. If you like the show and would like to support it, go to iTunes and do this. Subscribe to the show, leave a rating, and review it. It helps. And thank you. If you or someone that you know has quit their normal life to follow their dreams, I would love an introduction and maybe interview them on the show. You can find me at GoHuntLife.com and also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest at Go Hunt Life. Until next time, stay weird, dare greatly, and ripcord out.